So now we are going to move to industry. So I would like to welcome Karen Massin to talk to us. She is Head of Government Affairs and Public Policy in Europe for this small company called Google. And she'll be talking to us about some views from industry. Thank you very much, Karen.
Do need to bring that down a bit. Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really happy to be actually talking about, climate change and what we could do for that. But before I get started, I need to wake up the audience. So raise your hands if you know at least one thing about what we've been doing to contribute to sustainability. And not bad. Good. So let's see if I'm surprising you, basically, with our presentation. Oh, you know what? I forgot the paper. So just to start, I mean, we actually basically are a proud supporter of what's happening with the, with all the EU work on the climate change. We're supporting the EU Climate Pact. We also support the Green Digital Coalition and also the Climate Neutral Data Center Pact, which we help to fund. Good. So sustainability is actually a core value of our company since the founding. And taking action has not really been new for us. We've been basically doing that for the last 3 decades. We have 3 pillars in our strategy: what we do for us and our supply chain, what we do for our partners, and what we do for consumers through our products. We're basically not only focused on leading basically in our own operations, but what we try to do is make sure that, we help partners, we build on our products, to enable to give them solutions which are going to help them basically reduce emissions as well. And when it comes to our first pillar, which is what we do for us, basically our goal is to achieve a net zero across our own operations and our value chain by 2030. And we're pretty much in good progress on that. A key piece of our commitment to net zero by 2030 is actually operating every hour of every day on carbon-free energy. And we've done some research, with the Technical University of Berlin, which basically said that there's a huge difference if you actually are moving from annual matching to actually moving to hourly carbon-free. And it makes really big savings, not only for companies, but also for the entire electricity system. And of course, it's an enormous challenge. And, we're trying to find holistic, long-term solution at technological level. And that's actually we work with a lot of partners to really try to progress with speed and the scale required. And we also do a lot of things in terms of buying some diverse portfolio of carbon-free energy, and also to advance new technologies like the next generation of geothermal or batteries. And one example I will give you, we're actually working at the moment with in Germany with the company Engie. And what we've done is that they've been assembling a portfolio of only renewable energy, based on solar and wind. And they're going to allow us to basically run 80% only on carbon-free, basically from these 2 renewables, like real-time 24/7. And that's really a massive development. But of course, it's critical basically to be carbon-free, but it's also great if we are using less energy at the first place. So for us, we've been working in our Google data centers to be the most efficient in the world, and all the efforts have actually paid off. Our data centers lead the industry in energy efficiency, and we are twice more efficient as a typical data center. And what is also important is that compared to 5 years ago, we now can deliver 5 times as much as computing power with the same amount of electrical power. So you can be less guilty if you're watching a video. In 2016, what we did as well is we created a system based on AI that we actually developed into our own data centers, and it allows us to actually improve the energy efficiency in our centers and reduce, the energy by 30%. And our efforts basically are just not about us. We also basically do that as well with our value chain. And as you know, trying to help the value chain is a much more challenging and broader scope, task. We have a large number of entities and regions, but we basically work with them on a lot of different approaches to make it happen. But of course, our sustainability agenda is much broader than just carbon. If we take water as an example, Basically, our objective is actually to replenish 120% of the water we consume on average across our offices and our data centers, and to actually help restore and improve the quality of the water and the health of the ecosystem in the communities we operate. We're starting our efforts, of course, with the water-scarce regions, because that's where it's the most needed at the beginning. And we're also looking for new ways to be efficient with the water we use, like understanding the local hydrology, and we use data basically for that. And if I take two examples, in the Netherlands, in our data center, we basically developed a pipe which recuperates industrial water, which is already being used by other companies, and we use that to cool our system for the data centers. In Finland, we use the water from the sea, and of course, we don't want to have an environmental impact from that, so we kind of cool it down to almost the same temperature of the sea before we bring it back into the sea. So we've also set the North Star for the circular economy for our company. So for instance, we are committed to maximize or reuse, everything which is finite resources across our operations and also supply chain. So for instance, we have a goal to zero waste to landfill in our data centers. And we also aim to cut half of the food waste for each of the Googlers and to basically send zero waste to the landfill by 2025. So it's actually a commitment I have a lot, into our canteen in the office. So we make sure that, something is being reused, the next day and, processed basically to make another plate. And we really try to be conscious about that. But beyond our operations, we've also built local and planetary scale data platforms and technology solutions to enable others, businesses, cities, governments, to basically drive the action on climate at scale, which is what is important. So if you take one of our tools, which is called Global Earth Engine, basically it combines a catalog of satellite imageries and geospatial data sets, which basically has a huge analysis capabilities, and it's freely available for scientists, for researchers, for developers, and it helps to detect changes, map trends, and also quantify the differences basically on the Earth's surfaces. I don't know if you've seen that, but we do some videos where you really see like the difference of what's happening on the climate landscape, and it's really impressive to see that. Some of the exciting tools we've built with the Earth Engine capabilities includes the Global Forest Watch, where we can actually map, what's happening on the forestry. We can protect it. We can actually detect illegal logging and actually fight for it together with the governments. Same for the Fishing Watch. We can actually track the commercial fishing fleets. We have an AI algorithm for that, and it enables the authorities to detect if some of them are illegal fishing. And then the last bit as well, we have a surface water explorer, basically, which is tracking the changes which are happening at the surface water. And this is used a lot by the UN to measure progress, towards the SDGs 6.1. Now looking at flood forecasting. The latest IPCC report, has indicated an increase in the number and also in the severity of the floods, which highlight the need for more forecasted and more early warning technologies, which are helpful for the government and for the people who are actually there. We've partnered with governments in India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Brazil to deliver emergency flood alerts to help protect nearly about 500 million people who live in flood-affected areas. This is made possible through an AI and physics-based modeling, which incorporates basically data from historical flooding events, river levels, terrain and elevation data. And we basically generate a high-resolution elevation map, and we run it like thousands of times, for simulation in each location. And we're working to do the same as well with wildfire, and also to track basically urban heat islands, because we have that as well as a problem for all the cities. We have a foundation which is called google.org, and we basically try to support a lot of new ideas and a non-profit and expert to basically accelerate, a lot of the technological advancements. And in 2020, we launched a 10 million grant, and actually a lot of great ideas came out of that, which was the purpose. And I'll take one, which is normative.io. What they did is that they developed a carbon calculator for SMEs. And it allows basically SMEs to just measure where they are. They make simple input and actually track, and make their own reduction. And why it's important is because actually 90% of the companies are SMEs. They don't necessarily have the funds, or the guidance about how to reduce. And this is a very easy tool to implement. So I encourage you to use it. We have about 3,000 SMEs who've done that already, and they track their own reductions, and it's backed by the UN as a tool. And by the way, we've just launched we have launched a new Google Impact Challenge, in 2022, and now we're open basically for ideas. So if you know some organizations who have some good ideas, please make sure they're aware of that. We also want, there's one benefit about, being Google and being a large company is that actually we access a lot of people. There are billions of people who are using our products every day. And how can we actually make use of that so that the people actually can make more sustainable choices in their daily life? And for instance, we see the demand on search. We see what are the high keywords on search. And so, for instance, we see some of the trends, for people to be more sustainable. What we know from the IPCC report, again, is that if everybody is making tiny changes into their daily life, it actually has a huge impact. It's like the positive butterfly impact, basically, I would say, for that. So, we can actually all reduce by about 5%, the GHG emissions by making small changes. And so what we were doing for us, for instance, is like trying to incorporate basically sustainability into transportation, home energy, or shopping offers. One example, we know that recycling is coming high into the search of the people in terms of search topic, but it's not always easy, to know where you can be recycling, to watch up on how to do it. So what we've done is that, when you go on Google Maps, you can actually find the organizations or the companies, let's say, I don't know, an H&M, and then they can actually have a business profile, that where, you've got their business hours, and you also have the addresses. And now, basically, we're introducing as well that, they can actually mention what they recycle and how they do it, which is quite helpful for a consumer to have access to that. Wanted to go about, transportation. It's really been an area of focus for us, and because actually it has a huge impact. We estimate that, with a lot, we could reduce by about 70%, transportation emissions if we were using more technology. So a couple of examples of things we've done. If you're looking, on search, for like looking at flights, we would now give a detail about what would be the carbon impact of the different flight options. So it allows people actually to choose the flight according to the least, impactful on emissions options. We've actually open sourced that model so companies can actually take it from them as well. We've done the same with hotels. So when a hotel is certified as being very sustainable, basically they get a little eco-certified badge next to their name. And also we've launched Google Map eco-friendly routing. Who has seen in Google Map that now you can have like eco-friendly routings for your cars or for your, yes, raise your hands. Yeah, very good, very good. Me too, I have to say I use it. So good. Okay, so we've done that, and we've done that in the US, but also in 40 countries in Europe. And we've done that with some AI tools, but also taking data from the European environmental agencies. And just to give you two ideas, the German TV, RTL, did a real test, a couple of months ago, and for 3 hours they were like running on a car, using only the eco-friendly route, and they saw that they've actually reduced by 50% the fuel, they were using. So actually, it's really, really working. And I think give you an example because we launched that in the US and then in Canada first, and we've basically, removed in terms of emissions the equivalent of 100,000 cars. On fuel. So very important, first for your energy cost at the moment because it's very expensive to load a car, but also because it's very good in terms of emissions. And the last bit I want to talk about was also talking about buildings, because after transport, buildings are very high in terms of emissions. And the State Secretary said that as well. And digital technology can also contribute to reduce by 20 to 30% the emissions. So this is quite important. And there are a few things that can be done, of course, in addition to insulation. And I will name three. So for instance, you can have some, intelligent thermostat. like the one we have. And basically what we've seen by implementing them, it really helps to control the heating and the cooling in a much more efficient way. And we've reduced in average by 10 to 12% on heating and 50% on cooling. And if you take that over 10 years, it's basically 86 billion of kilowatt which was saved, which is more than actually the Belgium consumption of energy for 2022. So it's really important. It's really substantial. Another thing we're doing as well, we have something called a project sunroof, which basically is like using our map to see what are the areas where you can actually, it's worth putting some solar panels, and we're going to roll that out as well soon in more places. So as the State Secretary said, I mean, we're close to COP 2027, and it's really time to act now. And there is a lot of sustainability actions which already exist, a lot of technology actions which are proved, which already have been tried, have been piloted. But what is also now very important is really to scale them, so that is going to have an impact. And we think we can really do that through strong partnership. And we personally want to be a partner, basically, to put our digital tools at disposal and to really go from pledges to progress. And that's our goal for COP27. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karen. I don't know if this is an official term, but the green Googlers have been very busy. So thank you so much. And hopefully you were able to see how much more Google has been doing in the space than perhaps you were aware. We'd love to open it up to the floor for questions while we have the opportunity to ask Karen, given her area of responsibility, knowledge, and wisdom, of the role of technology in climate action.
I'm trying to improve on wisdom, but yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And 5G and optical fiber will just give everybody more and more bandwidth. Do you see Google consuming more and more energy despite your efforts to improve energy efficiency? And if that's the case, then do you see any ways to sort of maybe try to limit that data growth? For instance, should we move away from net neutrality and maybe ask people who want to stream YouTube videos at high resolution, maybe they need to pay for the emissions that they are causing?
A light question. Thank you very much. So, I mean, few things to say about that. I think this digital transformation is really relying on data, and it is really there. I think there's been much more efficiency in terms of data, and I think we don't want to reduce the data. I think that's not the right thing, because we want Europe to become digitalized, because there are so many benefits. And so, I mean, and also I'll take an example, but if you take a company, who moves from having physical servers to actually being on data centers, it's so much more efficient in terms of energy, in terms of cost. So you need to look at, the pros and cons on what you're winning. And honestly, you're really winning in terms of putting people into the most recent, infrastructure. Another thing to say about that is that we are so much more efficient. And I was talking about the fact that, within 5 years, we can keep the same energy consumption and actually use 5 times more data. So it really shows, the progress which is being there. Of course, if people are going to use more technology, everybody needs to do the work to make sure that we're not having a huge impact. And that's extremely fundamental. If you take, an example of data centers, I mean, I think they represent about 2 or 3%, of energy consumption in Europe. And you want it, we've actually worked a lot, I was saying that, we're 90% on carbon energy free. We want to stay there. We don't want to have a bigger footprint. But you have to see that bringing on technology is so much more, beneficial compared to actually the cost of, I would say, the more traditional infrastructure. And your question about, the data and how to do it, I think everybody has a role to play into building the infrastructure. I mean, us at Google, we invest into our data centers, the sub-key cables. We put a lot of caches basically into the telecom infrastructure, so that we make sure that it is actually staying there, being very efficient. And, if we look at some videos, they are very, very efficient. Now, I mean, even before COVID, now the streaming on the data on the streaming on the videos is no more than making a cup of tea. So if you watch a video for 1 hour, it's no more than making a cup of tea in terms of energy. So there's been a lot of work. Now it's totally adapted basically to are you like in a car, driving with your telephone so that the video stream is adapted, or if you're at home, so it's quite different. So I think there is a lot of development there. I don't think we want to reduce the data use because I think, it would not be the right direction for Europe's development. But I think everybody needs to actually make sure that they do their part into the infrastructure. On the left, I think.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Audrey Lebas from the Smart City Institute. I was a bit curious to know more about the mobility aspect that you just mentioned. Have you already been able to track or to measure the impact of the information on the user from a consumer perspective? So it's nice to have this information, but do people actually use them, or does it come into consideration in their choice effectively?
Yes. Yeah, well, we're a data company, so I think it helps us to actually track the progress. So if you look at the flights, we've actually really seen people actually going for that. And if it's not, of course, if it's going to be 6 hours more, they may not do it. But if it's comparable choices, basically, they would actually take the more environmental solution. We see that there is an eagerness for people to actually, make a move themselves. And in terms of other mobility, we're basically working with a lot with cities. We work with 4,000 cities in Europe and about 40,000 cities in the world. And what we do is, we use our Google Maps, and we basically use our Street View, and we make some data collection, and it allows us basically to see where are the emissions of transport. So you see the car, the buses. You see the car, the buses, and it allows to see where you can make some of the routes more fluid, where maybe you should change some of the traffic. Are there solutions you can implement? So we work with cities to really develop a plan for them to see where it's blocking and where they can improve things. And we really see some good developments. We work with the government of mayors as well on that.
Hi, Luca Polidori from Belta. I have two very quick questions. First one on the Google Flight, indeed. In order to compare the data, you have to do 2 clicks because you have to go in the option and select that. Do you think the impact will be higher if the data about the CO2 consumed will be there as a standard option? And then the second one is about the Google sustainability streets. So you can see which one is the most sustainable path you can follow with a car. Do you see any way to link that to the policy framework that right now makes it economically sustainable for economically advantages for companies to give employees cars in a way that the people working at company can also have eventual economical advantages by using the more sustainable streets?
That's a tricky question when you live in Belgium and there are a lot of company cars. But okay, so I think your first question was, what was the first question? I remember. Sorry, I forgot because I listened to the one.
No, about the user experience.
Yeah, the flight
yeah.
on the 2 clicks. Well, we always we try to improve our products, depending on the feedback from the people. So if we see that the 2 clicks is a problem, we will certainly change it. We do constant updates. We make then more than 100 updates per month on our products. So I'm sure that if we see that we don't have enough take-up and that we see this is a barrier, because we do a lot of basically consumer polling, then we would certainly change it. So I can come back to my colleagues to say that you don't like the 2 clicks, so I'll do that. And the other question is about, well, that's about the Belgian government choice, to give company cars to companies. I have to say, as Google, we've made that conscious decision not to do it. And we actually reimburse people using bikes and using public transport. So I think this is a company decision, I would say. If you ask me my opinion, I'm on bike, so I actually personally believe that maybe using the car is not, the most sustainable solution. But yes, if a company, and that's not for me to say very much, but if a company decides to use, to use company cars, I think, making them more electrical, making them also making some routes would totally make sense. And I think that's why we try to do that, is to really basically allow possibility to make a snowball effect and to have billions of people to make these choices that are going to have a huge impact. But I can't take responsibility for the government policies on that. So.
We expect to have tech for sustainability as a huge business in the future. Is this what you present here still part of the overall portfolio and something, or do you already measure that and have a clear target on how much you want to, in the future, to make business out of solutions for sustainability in the world? Microsoft, for instance, I know that they have a clear plan on that one. They also measure already the figures, and they have an expectation on how much money they want to earn with such solutions.
Well, first, I mean, for ourselves, I have to say, because sustainability is really ingrained into the way we do it, it's actually for us, it makes total sense. Of course, for us, it has an impact. If you build better products, which are, going to be better for the consumer, for instance, all our products in 2022 have now a recycled content. So you need to be very much in touch with, what the consumer wants. So I think that's basically the first thing. The second thing is that, of course, if you are, energy reliant on renewable energy, then actually it's a good move you're doing, for yourself, and it's a good move for the planet. So I think one can go with the others. And a lot of what we offer actually is for free, because a lot of that basically is our idea about how we can contribute. And I'm not in the business side, but of course there are a lot of benefits. If you can control your sourcing, or if you can actually control and understand that, there are of course environment, financial benefits for that as well. I'll give you an example. We're working within our cloud on AI with some of leading brands like Carrefour or like NG, and then what we help them is actually do exactly that. Like look at where are they sourcing, where they're more resilient, where they actually it's more dangerous, where it's going to increase their costs, to actually try to make the same choices. So I think it's as much making reductions as well financially. I think on that is very important. Yeah.
Okay,
but
Karen.
I don't know our business plans because I don't work on that.
Thank you, Karen. Actually, there was a question that was submitted before the conference by one of your colleagues. So
excellent. I hope it's a good one.
So this is from Vilma Kaza. She or he said, "We are 2 weeks away from COP, and we're facing climate crisis, as we know. What can the technology sector, perhaps in collaboration with other technology companies, do to scale up?"
Thank you. That's a very good question to end. So basically, what we see is that there are thousands of technological solutions out there, and they are already been tested. The question is about how we really scale it. How are we going to basically make it possible, make it affordable? How we really work together, to make these solutions. For instance, as I was saying, we have reduced our consumption on data center by 30% with AI. We would love actually to give that, AI, tool, about how people could do it. But how do we make it happen? How you make the jump from, say, more traditional companies and organizations so that they become more digital? So that partnership is really key, and to scale it so that we really make the progress.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Karen.
Thank you.
Yes.
No,
one
that was
more
not the last question
Okay.
then.
Hello, my name is Maxim, and I'm from the city of Lviv in Ukraine, and I have a question regarding we actually found out that during the last 5 or even 10 years, there were many European projects related to smart city initiatives, and many solutions were already tested. It's a little bit connected to the previous question. So they were tested already, they were validated in different cities as pilots, but the biggest challenge, I think, for all those solutions that were provided to cities is to scale them and replicate them in many cities. And those consortia which were established to deliver those solutions, they are not capable enough to replicate solutions in the whole Europe. And I have a question, does maybe Google have at least communication or already cooperation with different initiatives, smart city initiatives in particular we are interested in, and on supporting the replication and scaling up those solutions in the whole EU and beyond, in Ukraine as well?
Absolutely. Well, as I was saying before, absolutely, we partner with basically 40,000 cities in the world to actually make it happen. And we really come with our experts, our technical scientists, and then they actually show the modelization. We sit down with the cities, and then we help them basically come up with either it's like energy, energy reduction or transport reduction, or it can be air quality. So we absolutely partner, and then we have our people to come there and to help. Yes. So maybe we've not arrived there yet in Ukraine.